Assalamualaikum everyone. On behalf of Ravelin Students Research Society, I would like to welcome you all to our session titled Research Positions in the US. I'm Harun Shabir from Final Year MBBS, Rawalpindi Medical University, and I'll be your host for this session. To start, I want to mention a few things about our speaker today. So, our speaker is Dr. Abdullah Humayun, who is a graduate of Rawalpindi Medical University from batch 44. He is currently working as a research trainee at Mayo Clinic in Arizona in the United States, and he has some extensive research experience, including abstracts accepted at recent conferences, including CHEST and ASCO. Dr. Humayun has passed his three USMLE STEP exams and is one of the most helpful and active members in our alumni community from Rawalpindi Medical University. He is also the founder of Step Head Welfare Society, which is a very active welfare organization in our community here in Rawalpindi. They've impacted the lives of dozens, if not hundreds, of students in the community and have helped them achieve quality education. I also want to mention that Dr. Mayo was part of the first batch of doctors dispatched from RMU as part of RMU's flood relief campaign back in 2022. I'm sure I can keep going on about his other achievements as well for a while, but without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Abdullah Humayun. Assalamu alaikum, bhai. How are you?
Walaikum salam. Thank you so much for the introduction, Harun. You have been very kind, and thank you everyone for joining in. I just wanted to check, like, if the meeting is being recorded.
Yes, bhai, it's being recorded.
Okay, perfect.
So I just want to
So,
give an
thank you so.
overview
Hmm.
of how we're going to proceed with this session today. This is going to be a conversational session. I'm just going to pose questions regarding research positions in the US, questions that are people who have registered who have pushed, and then some from my end as well. And then we're gonna go back and forth. I hope that works for everyone. Right. So to start off, Abdullah bhai, I just want to ask, you graduated back in 2022, right? So how has your journey been like since graduation? What roles have you assumed, and how did you end up at your current position at Mayo Clinic?
Yeah. So, like, it's been a long journey, but like also very fulfilling. So I graduated med school in 2022, and at that time, honestly, I did not have a lot of research experience or idea about the USMLE or how the US system works. I think like I had an idea about the USMLE because by that time, a couple of my class fellows, they had already passed at least their step one, but honestly, a lot of it was pretty vague. So when I graduated, I was pretty decided that like I'm going to pursue USMLE. But again, having taken that decision, I decided to do my house job, which is traditionally it's not um, it's not favored by people who want to pursue this path because it prolongs your year of graduation. But my line of thinking was that in case my match got delayed or for some reason I'm not able to complete this path, I wanted to at least have a clinical experience in my country that will qualify me for jobs in Pakistan. So
Right.
that was my thinking behind pursuing house job. So I did my house job from RMC Allied Hospitals from 2022 to 2023. And during that time, I didn't even try to take the steps because honestly, you can take the steps in house job like a lot of people do, but I wasn't able to manage the studies with the clinical work and also switching in between rotations. So I started preparing for my step one after completing my house job. Like the day I completed my house job, I went back to my home in Lahore. And after a week, like I started my preparation, and I also started working as a demonstrator at CMH Lahore Medical College, where I taught for like 4 or 5 months as a demonstrator. So I passed my step one in January. In January 2024, like after 6 months of preparation, I started step two right after that. I passed that in 6 months as well. And during this time, my visa for my observerships, it got rejected in Feb, which was very demotivating, but and a huge setback. I had my rotations aligned in June, July, August, September last year. Um, but like I wasn't able to do them because of my visa issues. But then again, I applied for the visa again and got it in November. And in January this year, traveled to US. So about the research position, I started working in research after seriously after step one. Like even during step one, I don't think I had much experience. But like after passing step one, my first project was with Dr. Umair Mushtaq, who is a hemonc attending at University of Kansas Medical Center. And we were actually trying to get some work done for ESCO that year. We did complete some projects, but they were not accepted at ESCO. So this is something that I would like to emphasize early on, that in research, it is you are playing the long game. Please do not chase after publications. Please do not chase after acceptances, because these days a trend I have been noticing at is people have like a lot of publications, but most of it can be garbage. Like, if you get into the detail of their research gate profile, and also like a lot of acceptances at these conferences for abstracts, but converting those abstracts to full length manuscripts and then getting them published in good journals, that is the real work, and it is pretty hard. Like, it's not easy. And once you publish something, it stays with you for your whole career. Even if you're a professor, even if you complete your PhD, these things, they will come back to you. So if you did some work that is not defendable or has some loops, then people are gonna talk about it even when you're very far in your career. So make sure that even if you're working on not many projects, everything should be 100% defendable. Like, it should be the perfect quality you can come up with. So the quantity doesn't matter, the quality of work does. uh, I see a couple of hands for questions. I think
Uh,
like we can
we'll
unmute
have a
them so
Q&A
they can
in
ask.
the end.
Okay,
We'll have
okay,
a
that's
Q&A in the
perfect.
end. I want to reassure the participants.
Okay,
So I
okay,
want to ask more about
okay,
your current role at Mayo Clinic.
okay.
Like, what's that like? How did you prepare your CV for it, and how did you secure it?
Yeah, so I think for my current role, so before coming to that, like I would describe what my current role is. So I am currently a research trainee at the Mayo Clinic Arizona campus, which is in Scottsdale. Their main campus is in Phoenix, but our lab, it is located in the Scottsdale campus. Our lab is mainly working on genitourinary cancers and artificial intelligence. So we have three attendings. One is focused on prostate cancer, one is focused on bladder, and one is focused on kidney cancers. And all three, they work very closely together. So we have research trainees that would be assigned on paper to like one preceptor, but like again, it's a very collaborative effort.
Right.
Um, and it is unpaid, so that is also something that I want to clear out, that most of the research positions in the US, they are going to be unpaid unless you have like a very extensive research profile before applying for these positions, which I did not have. And also, the second thing is, if you have like a very well connected alumni, that I would also say, because honestly, it depends a lot in US at least. I mean, even in Pakistan and other countries, but always staying well connected, it helps. So this is something that is also a very important part of this journey. Make sure you are never isolated. Like, even in your studies, doing your exams, doing your research, make sure, ask yourself that, like, I am working on this project in this field, who is someone more smarter than me that I can reach out to and contribute to their work? Because the thing is, we often think that we are doing something novel, but the truth is there are far more smarter people who are already working on those things. And what can help is like, instead of initiating something new, or starting from scratch, we can build on what those people have worked on. So paid positions are definitely possible, but for people who are going for residency, and especially in specialities which are not very research heavy, like internal medicine is research heavy, but like to match in internal medicine, honestly, you don't need a lot of research. These days you do, but like in the past you didn't used to. But like for some specialities, for example, if you're going for surgery, if you want to do like neurosurgery, you want to do ENT, you want to do radiology, interventional radiology, for these positions it is like the minimum criteria. Like for research, you have to at least complete a couple and sometimes even more research years before even applying for your ERAS application. So for internal medicine, I know many people like who mashed without a research year. I know many people like who mashed without a single case report or anything. But then again, like it varies from your own individual circumstances. I did not have like a very stellar step two score. And after my result, like, when I was mapping my strategy for future, I thought like the best option is, now trying to augment my application through research. And then again, like, create a stronghold like in the US system by entering it through a research pathway. So like that was my thinking after consulting my seniors and mentors. So yeah.
So, right, okay. So moving on, I want to talk about the types of research positions that are available. Of course, we discussed paid versus unpaid positions, but I want to talk more about how we can increase our chances of, landing a paid position. And apart from that, I want to ask you about research hierarchies because there are some terms that are used interchangeably. What's a research associate? What's a scholar? What's a research assistant? So if you could elaborate that a bit.
Okay, so I think like I missed a question in the previous slide about like how I got this position.
Yeah.
So I think I want to answer that before coming on to this. I
Okay.
think honestly it was a couple of everything. It was a lot about luck as well, I would say. Uh, I did have like a CV for that position because it's in oncology, and I had worked with Dr. Umair Mushtaq, who is very well respected in this field, on some projects before that. So, like, I could actually say that, like, I have at least a basic research interest in oncology and some work to show for it. Uh,
Okay.
at the same time, I think like being well connected, it really helped. Like, I had a mentor who recommended me for an interview for this position. And then after the interview, I was pretty convinced that, like I'm not gonna be selected for some reason, but like I got the acceptance email in the morning. So I think it was a lot of factors. It is, first of all, it is luck. It's the Almighty's blessing. You should never think that, like I earned this, or I was the most suitable candidate for this, because I can say 100%. I know a lot of people. I know people from my own class. I know people who are my juniors, who I consider them as my teachers, because like, they're more qualified, they're more knowledgeable, they have far more better understanding of research and the field compared to me. But like me getting this position, honestly, I'm very grateful to the Almighty. And also, I think everything came together to work it out for me. I was sending cold emails for I think like 4 or 5 months before I got this acceptance. So what I would do is I would identify people who might have grants or people who might have a lab or research trainees. And then, I would look up their profile, I would look up their work, and then, I would try to reach them via email in a way that, my interest align with their research interest and how I can contribute to their work. So that was happening for 4 or 5 months without any success. And then, like, out of nowhere, I applied for this, like I was told to apply for this. And then, there was an interview process, and then I got hired. So, like, that's how, like, I landed here. So again, one thing I would say is there's a lot of gatekeeping in medicine. I am a very firm opponent of that. Obviously there are things you cannot share, but if you have a way of helping out someone, if you're at a place where you can help out someone, please do. Like, even if you don't know them, like, you can talk to them to get an idea about their background and everything. But, like, please, like, help out more people once you're able to. If you can connect someone to the place you're working, if you can connect people for rotations, if you can connect people for research, like, someone who is doing very like very excellent work in some field, and a medical student, like, who doesn't have an idea, because that's the thing about exposure. And that's how alumni network they work, is that, so basically, for a medical student in Pakistan, I think, like, knowing about the kind of AI and the projects we are working, it can be very hard, because we don't have access to these tools back in Pakistan. But, like, if you have someone who is sharing that knowledge with you, that this work is being done in the world, and then it's very easy for people to dream and imagine, and also accomplished their own dreams. So I am a firm believer in this concept, and I think maybe at some level this thing worked out for me because of my belief. Because honestly, otherwise, I didn't have, I'll be very honest, I'm not like a very technical researcher or like a very accomplished researcher at this point. And I think the abstract acceptances, a couple of my projects accepting being accepted for like full length manuscripts, I didn't even have all of this when I applied and got selected for this position. So, like, all of this, it happened after that. Because in research, you are working, you are being rejected from journals and conferences, and then you are making amendments and you're applying again and those things. And then at some point you started getting published. So this is something that I would say is stay connected, like, get to know people, not because you want to get something out of them, but because you can always need help from someone, and you are always able to help someone as well. So it's a chain that should always be, it should always be keep moving.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your experience, Mike. So moving on, I want to talk about types of research positions. If you could clarify that.
Okay. So now coming to this question, so I think there's not much difference between research scholar, temporary research trainee, which I am, or like research associate. Research coordinators, I think it's a different thing altogether, because those people, they are more in command of helping conduct clinical trials, and enrolling participants, coordinating things. And many times you would see like research coordinators, at least from my experience in here at US institutions, most of them, they don't need like even a very heavy medical background. They could be people in statistics, they could be like people in engineering and those fields. um, of course they can be MDs as well, but like I have seen very few MDs working as research coordinators. Most of them, either they are research assistant, temporary research trainee, or research associate, and these things. So I think like uh, the nomenclature, it just differs from institute to institute in terms of workload and your responsibility. I don't think like there's a whole lot of difference. That's my point of view. Of course, like when you go up the hierarchy, assistant professor, associate professor, those things like they have difference in terms of their seniority, and also uh, you know uh, their promotions and things. But this is a different route. Like for most people who are working, who are pursuing USMLE, I don't think they end up pursuing a PhD, like which is the traditional pathway for someone who is interested in research. But some people do, and I mean, this is a possible pathway which I think many people do not know about. So there's a pathway called PTSP2, Physician Scientist Pathway, for residency training in US. So what that is, you complete your PhD and then you apply for residency. And this is a 6-year pathway where you have an accelerated pathway towards a research heavy fellowship. So you directly match into fellowship without having applied to fellowship match. And one of my mentors, Dr. Anam Akbar, she matched through this pathway this year. I think like at University of Nebraska. I might be mistaken in that, but like she matched through PTSP2 this year. So I think that's the whole point of being connected, and like getting to know and talking to a lot of people, because you would realize there are so many options out there. Like there are so many ways to accomplish what you're trying to achieve, and sometimes it is hard to come up with a solution, or a pathway, if you don't know about it, and you're not talking to people. So always make sure that you are building like good strong connections, build on trust. So because this thing, it goes a long way in your career, how your colleagues view you, how your seniors view you, how your juniors view you, all those things, it makes a huge difference. Okay, so paid versus unpaid, I think definitely paid positions were possible before this current administration. Even now, I know some people who are working on paid positions, but the problem with paid positions is mostly like they require a commitment for you that exceeds like a couple of years. I think that's my understanding. And for people who want to transition to residency, making this sort of commitment, it's hard. Like it's hard to make this commitment because your year of graduation would be increasing, and you want to get into residency like as soon as possible. So that's an obstacle. And another thing is like transitioning from unpaid to paid. All of these things, they like it's very dependent on your PI and your lab, like your specific department working. Because I know some people who don't have like an institutional funding, but their primary investigator pays them a stipend, for their monthly allowance or rent or these things. But our lab doesn't have any mechanism like this. A lot of other labs do not have any mechanisms like this. But so this is something that is very subjective and varies from like case to case. It's not like uniform policy anywhere. That's my understanding is.
Right, right. So we got a couple questions about this as well. A lot of students want to ask how you manage your expenses if you're working as an unpaid research trainee. So how does that work?
So this is a very good question, and I think like this is the question that people pursuing USMLE or any other foreign pathway, they have to think about. Honestly, like I wouldn't sugarcoat it. uh, I was very privileged that like I had the financial backing from my family to pursue this opportunity, and like I can never like pay off their debt for doing this for me. This is like this is an honest reality, because otherwise, if finances are an obstacle, again, I have seen people making it work. A lot of people make it work, but I didn't know like how I would make it work, because like on the J1 research visa, you are not legally allowed to work in the US, and any doing anything that hampers your visa policies or limitations, I don't recommend it ever, because you are transitioning to a new system, you're building a whole career out of nowhere. It's a completely new setup, all these things. So make sure you don't do anything that can go against you in any way, shape, or form. Um um Another thing is like what you can do is, and I've been trying to do during my rotations, is cut down on the expenses that you can. I mean, don't go out much, or try to budget your food and traveling, these things. Try to have roommates so you can share the rent and all those things. And also, I would say, try, if you are looking for such position, try to find it somewhere where the expenses are not that high. So I had like a potential offer from Harvard as well for an unpaid position. But like Boston is really expensive. Like it is really expensive. The rent and cost of living there. And when I compared it with Scottsdale, even Scottsdale is pretty expensive, but like I think by US standards, our monthly expense, I think it would be hard to come up with something that is less than that. That is my understanding. So I think you can, I am at least like trying to make it work within like 1000 US dollars per month, including my rent, my food, everything. So I think below that it would be really hard anywhere in the US. And another thing is, try to see it like an investment. What I mean by that, uh, I know people like who mash after 2 cycles, 3 cycles, even 4 cycles, and during this point you are traveling to US back and forth. You are doing your rotations, you are paying for those rotations, you are paying for accommodation, those things. And I think like it really drains out your finances and all those things, instead of like if you're dedicated researcher, you're working productively, you're making good connections, and you end up matching after 1 cycle. So I think like it's a good investment, it's a good trade off in the long term. And also I think after 1 year, if you like if you're very dedicated in your work and you sure your year was productive, I think it is easy to transition then to a paid position even if you go unmatched. So in the start it is always difficult. I think even with the privilege and everything I had, it was difficult even for me and my family. But we decided that like a risk like this is worth taking for my long term career, because the kind of exposure you get at like Mayo Clinic or Harvard or any of these places, I think it can really transform you. I can say it for myself. Like I have noticed a huge change in everything since I started role, even though like my formal start date is a couple of days away, but I've been here for a couple of weeks now, for my orientation and stuff. But just the exposure and also the opportunity to work with like really smart people from all over the world, it is a huge thing for your learning. Because I have always see where I am the most dumb person. Like, this is my thinking. Because if you are saying you are the most qualified person, I mean, there's not much room for growth there then. So it is definitely a hard decision. I know for many people it is not possible. It would be very unjust and unfair for me to say that, oh, everyone of you should aspire, you should dream. Like, everyone has their personal circumstances, and I respect that. And I realized that, having studied like in a government funded medical college, that the reality, especially the financial reality, is not the same for everyone. So, having said that, like, I definitely want to point out that I was privileged enough to pursue this dream of mine. And if you're really passionate, you can accomplish everything. The time might be different, the transition might be different, but I know a lot of people who didn't have the privilege that I had, but they went on and accomplished far more than I have ever done. So, finances are an obstacle, but again, if you're hardworking, if you're passionate, you can work your way around it. And, with the social structure we have in Pakistan, I think I would advise, instead of going for loans from banks or companies, I think asking for help from your family, that should be the first step, because many people, they would be interested in investing in you, seeing your potential. Because once you are a doctor here, you have completed your residence in the US. I think uh, this amount of money you can pay off like in less than a year, and a lot of people do. Also, the financial reality is the same for everyone. I used to think it is just hard for us IMGs, but having worked with the US attendings, people who were born and raised in US, went to US medical schools, it is hard for everyone. Medicine is not cheap. It is very expensive. So I know some attendings who are still like paying off their student debts, and I think for them it's harder than us, because for us, like, if you manage to get into a government medical school, you didn't have to pay much for your MBBS, right? So you can direct those finances for your USMLE journey. And I think, like, this is my perspective. If I hadn't managed to get into a government medical school, 100%, like, I wouldn't be able to pursue the USMLE, because the funds that got into that, like, they were basically there for my college and university. If I didn't get into like a government fully funded institution. But because I was fortunate to having studied from Rawalpindi Medical College, where our tuition and living expenses, they were not so high, I was able to pursue USMLE.
Right, right. Thank you for sharing that. I want to move forward to talking about the value of these research positions in residency match for a while. So we've seen a recent increase in the number of students who are aspiring for residency in the US, and that's great. And a lot of them have been looking for options in the interim before they actually match. So how valuable do you think these experiences can be?
Uh, so great question. I think one thing I would like to share is, please do not see research as something that adds value to your profile. This would be like, uh, my first lesson that I would share, because when I was in this journey, I used to think like this as well. But the problem with this thinking is, when you have this sort of thinking, you're more likely to do low quality work that probably means nothing compared to doing some actual meaningful research. Also, the fact that research makes you a better clinician, 100%. There is no doubt about it. I think every clinician should have at least a basic understanding of research. And if you are heavily into research, that is great. But to be a good clinician, I think your research skills, you also need to polish them. This is because medicine is very rapidly evolving, at least here in the US. There are trials coming up for different diseases every other day. There are different treatment modalities coming up for things day after day. It is a very evolving landscape, and it is very hard to keep up with that, if you are not research oriented. This is my experience and perspective have been. And I have seen people, like, from my rotations, I think, the people who were actively into research, I found them to be better educators, better communicators, better leaders compared to people who were not into research. So it is a very useful and professional skill to have, for your own learning, and also like for your career prospects 100%. But your primary priority should be to learn research, to be a better researcher, to improve the patient outcomes. So you want to do the best thing for your patient, right? And if you don't know about the latest work in your field, how are you going to be able to do that? You're not going to be able to do that, right?